What is the scariest ghost story you ever heard? Disclaimer: I submitted this in the past. All events are true. My house was built in 1904. It was a single-family home, wood frame setting on a concrete block foundation. I have been living there for about 12 years. Of all the weird things that my siblings and me have seen or heard in this house, this one event is my favorite. This happened to my brother. About 10 years ago, my brother and his best friend had started a garage band playing mostly Spanish rock alternative music, but in Spanish. His friends could only get together on Sunday afternoons. They would practice in the early evening. They would usually call it quits by 8 p.m. This was the time I usually showed up and went to bed, because I worked the graveyard shift. This happened in late fall, so the days were getting shorter. They had just finished a long session where the decision to head to someone else's house came about. My brother handed his car keys to his buddy so they could load up the equipment. Everyone had filed out of the basement. The tricky part was that they needed to walk all the way back to the back of the basement, up the back stairs, through the kitchen doorway, down the hall into the living room and out into the front porch. Everyone was outside sitting in my brother's truck waiting for him. My brother was walking up the back stairs when he remembered that he had left his pancakes in a to-go container sitting on a speaker in the basement. He made the decision to go back. Now the basement is not clean. With full sight lines, there have been partitions made, and the boiler and main heater unit are right smack in the middle. So after my brother walks back, he's about to retrieve his food container, when out of the corner of his eye, he sees it. It's a shadowy figure right at his peripheral vision. This feeling of dread and uneasiness washes over my brother. We have been taught that if you are in the presence of a spirit or ghost, and you felt a bad vibe, to say quick prayers or to curse at it. My brother chose the latter. He basically just told it, "Hey, fuck you. I don't have time for this shit." My brother started to walk to the back of the basement and briskly up the stairs, closing the door and turning off lights as he was walking out. The last light switch is on the opposite side of the front door. Luckily, the door was open and the light from the street lamp was flooding the living room with its amber light. My brother said he felt something at his back, but at no point did he turn around, and he flicked the last switch to the living room. As he flicked the last switch, the living room went dark, as the rest of the house. As he stepped out, he pulled on the door, closing it behind him. Still holding his food container in one hand, he jogged down the few porch steps. He walked towards the front gate. Our house resides far from the main street, essentially having a large front yard, but no rear garage. As he closed the gap between him and his friend laden truck, he kinda smiled and thought things over in his head, mad at himself for spooking out when there was no reason. He climbed into the driver's side of the truck, putting out his seatbelt and getting ready to pull out of the parking spot directly in front of our house, when one of our friends asked, "Hey, wait, what about your brother? Isn't he coming with us?" My brother answered, "What do you mean? He went to work early tonight. He's already gone. Did you see his car anywhere?" The next question they asked was, "So then, who was walking behind you when you were leaving the house?" A man goes to a bed and breakfast. While checking in, the owner tells him that the room next to his is undergoing some repairs, so don't open the door or anything. The man goes into his room, drops off his things, but then is bored. He pokes around the house a little, and with nothing else to do, decides to see the room that needs repairing. He tries the door, and it's locked. He wonders why the owner would even bother warning him about this room since it's locked away. Whatever. He peeks through the keyhole, and the room beyond it isn't actually being repaired. It's completely empty, except for a figure in the far side of the room sitting in a chair facing the wall. The man stands up again, creeped out. Just to make sure he wasn't imagining things, he bends down and looks through the keyhole again. This time, he doesn't see the figure or the room at all, just the color red, like someone was blocking a keyhole with construction paper. Weirded out, the man goes to bed. When he's at breakfast with the owner the next morning, the man asks him casually about the repairs in the next room. The owner sighs and says, "Truthfully, I don't rent out that room because so many people have told me it's haunted by a ghost with red eyes." Hey guys, this is my first ever post on Reddit, so I'll try to make it a good one. The following story happened to me a few years ago, and I swear to its authenticity. First off, I live in a century home, meaning my house is at least 100 years old, if not more. Being as old as it is, it's seen its fair share of deaths over the years. Needless to say, a house as old as mine can have some creepy vibes from time to time, and every now and then, I might get a chill or the sensation that someone is watching me. One night, after everyone else in my family has gone to bed, I was always the last to go to sleep. I was sitting downstairs just watching TV when I started to feel a little uneasy. It felt like someone was in the room with me, even though my entire family was upstairs sleeping. I decided to shrug it off and went upstairs to get some sleep. I lay down in my bed just trying to nod off when suddenly I got the same feeling again, only this time I was sure I wasn't alone. Now, since my house is so old, you can hear whenever someone is walking around because of the creaky floorboards. Right after I got that weird sensation again, the floorboard right next to my bed began to creak. It didn't just stop there though. The creaking moved from the edge of my bed across the room into my bedroom door. As soon as it reached the door, someone began pounding on it from the other side. I mean, really pounding. Obviously by now, I was shitting my pants with fear. My curiosity got the better of me, and I leapt out of bed and flung the door open. There was no one on the other side. I checked to see if everyone was still in their rooms, thinking maybe someone was pulling a prank on me, but they were all fast asleep. I was getting really freaked out by this point, but decided that there wasn't much else I could do, so I went back to sleep. Around 15 minutes later, I was woken up by something shaking me awake. To my horror, the entire bed was violently shaking and every light in my room was on. I'd actually woken up because my headboard had whacked me in the head because it was shaking so much. As soon as I was able to gather what was going on, it all suddenly stopped, and I was left sitting in my quiet room with all the lights on. Needless to say, I had a lot of trouble getting back to sleep that night. No one will believe this, but I'll share anyways. In 7th grade, my friend and I went over to Mary's house, intent on playing with her mom's Ouija board that night. None of us had played with one before. Mary's mom was an extremely spiritual person who believed in energies, witchcraft, stuff like that. Before we used the board, Mary warned us that her mom would be really pissed if she found that we were playing with it because Ouija boards can attract bad spirits into the home. With full knowledge of this, we decided to proceed anyways. This Ouija board was not like the average Ouija board you have ever seen. Although with the usual characteristics, the alphabet, yes, no, goodbye, there was an entire array of symbols and signs that were all arranged in a circle. This was some seriously intricate stuff. We started just goofing around and communicating with random spirits here and there until we finally met one that had us in tears the entire sleepless night. First, we asked the spirit if it was a man or a woman, to which he replied, M-A-N. Then we asked how he was killed. M-U-R-D-E-R. That freaked us out only a little bit, but we were mostly excited. All of a sudden, before we even asked another question, the glass goes to the eyeball symbol, then spelling out I-N, and goes to the water symbol. We didn't have a clue what that meant. It wasn't too scary until the spirit spelled out S-H-O-W-E-R. My best friend realized that the spirit was trying to get us to look into the shower. We froze. I've never been so scared in my entire life, especially sitting directly in front of the bathroom with the shower curtains all the way closed, facing in my direction. We all screamed and promised on our friendships that we have not moved it ourselves. Very important promise. I felt like I was being watched, and my friends thought so too. It was only 4 of us, and I believe with all my heart that none of them had moved it because we were all too nervous to do anything. I'll never use a Ouija board again because of how crazy and intense that night was. I understand that people say Ouija boards are controlled by your subconscious, but fuck that. I know I felt something in that room with us. I know it was fucking dangerous.